Hey, everybody, this is Bob Goodwin, and welcome to another episode of Career Club Live. Thank you so much for joining. If you happen to be watching us on YouTube, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help. Today's episode is brought to you by our newest service, Next Placement. If you're an HR professional and you're dealing with either layoffs or having to transition employees, we'd really encourage you to take a minute to learn more about Next Placement, where we're bringing a more people-centric, empathetic approach to helping folks who are caught up in career transition by bringing mental health services, emotional intelligence coaching, and deep community. We know that we're helping people move on to what's next, not just focusing on who's out. So with that, I'm excited to introduce our guest today. It's Kevin McDonald, and Kevin is VP People Services and Insights for the Scripps Company. If you don't know that name off the top of your head, that's okay. Kevin's going to share some of the brands I know you are familiar with that fall under the Scripps umbrella. Kevin's a frequent conference speaker and industry resource on HR transformation. He's going to be sharing his expertise on managing through change. He's built the airplane in flight several times. Also, we're going to talk about the role of analytics in HR, which I think is really a fascinating topic. And then lastly, a healthy dose of career advice. So with that, Kevin, welcome.
Hey, Bob, how are you?
I am doing fine, sir. It's so good to see you. So where do we find you today?
From my home office in Fairfield, Ohio, which is about 20 miles north of Cincinnati.
Awesome. Well, that kind of probably leads us to an easy thing is folks who have listened to our podcast before know I love to ask just a handful of questions to help people get to know you as a human being first, and then we'll kind of dive into all the worky stuff. So Cincinnati, are you born and raised in Cincinnati or?
Born and raised in Cincinnati, lived, I think, in 10 places by the time I was 18. So I've lived all over the city. My mom still manages apartments. And so we moved wherever she was working at the time. So I've lived all over the city.
That's cool. So this is a loaded question for a Cincinnati person, but where did you go to school?
So I graduated from Roger Bacon High School. So I'm a GCL kid.
Awesome. And for college?
So I was a non-traditional student. I started working right after high school and ended up getting my bachelor's degree from Thomas More. So Catholic school right across the river in Northern Kentucky.
No, that's excellent. So for anybody who's not from Cincinnati, when you ask where somebody went to school in Cincinnati, that is code for where'd you go to high school. So college is a separate question.
Absolutely.
And then just a little bit, Kevin, about your family.
Yeah. So my wife Sandra and I are going to be celebrating 25 years next March. So
congratulations.
That is a long time to put up with me, Bob. So sainthood certainly awaits her. We have two kids. My oldest, Cameron, is 23, and my youngest, my baby, is just wrapping up her junior year of high school, and she'll be a senior next year.
Awesome. Well, you're way too young to have a 23-year-old. And then just real quickly, do you mind painting people just a little bit of a picture of your career and sort of maybe some key stops along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, I started in the workforce right out of high school. I started at Fifth Third Bank, which is was a much smaller bank at that time. That was in 1995, dating myself now. And it's ballooned into a truly a super regional bank now. But when I was there, we were really Ohio and Florida and Indiana and a little bit of Kentucky. That was pretty small, relatively. But started in the employee file room. Really just lucked out. Didn't know I was getting into HR. Didn't try to get into HR. Just kind of lucked out. And the entry level position that was open was in the employee file room. So literally started entering, new hires into the system and, data entry, and then actually literally creating the employee file, like the actual file. That's where I sat and that's what I did. And after that, it was just kind of opportunities knocked and I opened the door, that and which we'll get into later. But people always ask me like, well, how did you get to, various positions? That was it. Opportunities will knock and you have to be ready to answer, even if you're terrified. So my first job outside of the employee file room was dealing with retirement. So you have the 19-year-old at that point, dealing with 401k and pension. I hadn't even been born yet, and I'm dealing with retirement stuff from a career standpoint. But spent a lot of time in the benefits department, doing a lot of things. Actually transitioned for about a year over to our corporate tax department, because that's where the equity compensation program was managed. Our SVP of corporate tax at that time owned that. Realized that it was great experience, but I am not an accountant and I do not like taxes. So I was like, okay, it's time to get back into HR. So got back into HR operations and did a lot of outsourcing, just a lot of project work, and spent 11 years, a little over 11 years at Fifth Third before I joined Scripps in 2007, and have been here since. So going on
just
15 years now.
Couple quick things just on your background. I love the non-traditional, right? So you joined the workforce right out of high school without having college yet, which for me personally is really interesting to hear, because there's so much talent out there that doesn't have a 4-year degree, and that's cool. Second thing that you said was you just sort of kind of air quote fell into it a little bit. And as young people, like, we don't always know what we want. So sometimes you just need to try stuff. It's like kids with band instruments or sports. Like, you just need to try stuff.
Right.
Like, you tried accounting, not so much, went back to HR because you knew that you liked that. And then last thing that you said that sort of strikes me is that just the opening the door when opportunity knocks and not being afraid to take a chance. And can I really do this? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But you've got to open those doors. And I think it's also a credit to you that those doors are being knocked on. So clearly you're doing good work. When you're not at work, what do we find you doing?
I don't have the ability to say no easily to people. So the answer to that is a lot. So I am in my 12th year now coaching high school basketball at Fairfield. It started way back when my oldest daughter was playing in middle school, and I just stuck with it and continued to coach. So yeah, entering my 12th year this year with that. My youngest daughter is a cheerleader and has been for years. So I'm, cheer dad, but also she's in Fairfield show choir programs, which are quite honestly known throughout the country for how successful they are. And I'm one of the tech dads, which basically means I'm a roadie. We get to move all their stuff and set it up and break it down in between shows and all that fun stuff. And she loves it. And it's really great to be able to be involved with something that she loves and cherishes the way she does. I'm also with Talbot House on their fatherhood committee. Been doing that for a few years now, which is a really great program about helping fathers reestablish themselves in their kids' lives. And providing resources to do that. My biological father left when I was but a baby. So I grew up without a true father. And so that program is really near and dear to me. And then I would say last thing, I'm on the board of a nonprofit based here in Fairfield called the Purple Monkey Project. You can go to purplemonkeyproject.org and find out more information. But it was started due to the loss of a friend of ours, their 10-year-old daughter, Reagan. And she was a serial spreader of joy in the community. And it was really started to, continue on that legacy of spreading joy. And so we provide scholarships and awards and pay off school fees and just do different things, kind of acts of kindness in her name throughout the community. So, very involved with that. And I'm sure there's other stuff I'm forgetting, but that's probably enough.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, that's why we like asking these questions, because I just learned some stuff about you I didn't know prior to this conversation. So, you definitely seem to be someone who runs to meet a need and sees something that needs to be done and just rolls up your sleeves and gets involved. So that's awesome.
It's interesting, Bob. I had a former coach who was the head coach that I worked with for years and years and years. And he once called me a gap filler. It just, you see a gap and you fill it. And it's so interesting. And I know we'll get into this, but just as it relates to kind of career work, what are you doing to fill gaps and make yourself valuable? But we'll get into that.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. Well, we might as well just touch on something super quick. So that's one of the things that we talk about at Career Club is, what is your unique value proposition? What are the problems that you solve or the opportunities you help the company take advantage of? And if you don't know what that is, are you really filling gaps?
Yeah.
So I think that's a great way of, I'm going to start expressing it that way to clients. I really like that gap filler. So for folks who are not familiar with EW Scripps, can you just maybe describe some of the brands and then the double click on that is and what your role is just a little bit more in detail?
Yeah, absolutely. EW Scripps it's a really fantastic company with just an unbelievable history. Started back in the 1870s with the penny press, which was really the first newspaper that was designed for the working class. And it was based in Cleveland. And, fast forward all these years later through so much change. I mean, in my 16 years, there's been really 3 transformational transactions that we've done just in my 16 years as a company. And so, it's been a great opportunity for me to participate in that and to learn and to, flex, different muscles that it takes to go through those things. But from a company standpoint, it's been really interesting to watch our company leadership, that's changed over time, of course, continually look at kind of where do we need to go next? As as news and information is consumed by, obviously various people in now hundreds of different ways versus, what it was even 20 years ago. So we're based here in Cincinnati. We own local TV stations throughout the country. We're in 60 plus TV stations in 30 plus markets now. Wow. We own some national networks as well, like ION. Most people would know us, and actually coming up is the Scripps National Spelling Bee.
Yes.
So that's a Scripps property as well. So we exited the newspaper business in 2015. But prior to that, so when I first got here, we were still big in the newspaper business. We've been in the radio business in the past and exited that as well. So now it's really TV and, both local and national networks in the Spelling Bee. And then also the Scripps Howard Foundation as well, which is kind of our philanthropic arm.
Okay. And then your role as VP of People Services and Insights?
Yeah. So, every few years, if you've been around the HR space, we come up with new fancy names for things we do. Most people would think of what I do as HR operations. So it's HR technology. So we're a Workday shop, both on the HR and financial side. So the team that administers Workday reports up through me. So HR and financials technology. I have what you would truly consider kind of back office, HR compliance. So HR, payroll, payroll tax, dealing with, all the different union stuff that we deal with as well, and processing payments and all the withholdings. So all of that stuff, we try to we years ago when we did our HR transformation project, we wanted to pull as much administration out of the field as possible and centralize that or source it. And we've done that. So we also manage the relationship with companies that we outsource various services to. And then the last part of what reports to me is the insights portion. And so I have a director of HR insights who, I was really tasked him with 2 things. Tell us something about our people that we don't already know, and we need to start measuring the effectiveness of HR programs. Just recently, I've added a member to the team as well. That's our director of employee experience. And so that's another a lot of employee listening, which is more insights into the organization as well. And he and my insights guy work very closely together on that. So that's kind of what makes up my group.
So HR operations and insights, I'm really interested in both. When we've spoken before, Kevin, and you just alluded to it a minute ago, like the company continues to go through transformations, making acquisitions, exiting businesses. I mean, that is a lot. And of course, people are coming in and out of the company. You've got integrations, you've got divestitures, right? And trying to keep up with all that stuff. At a high level, if somebody's listening to this and maybe specifically if they're in HR operations or more broadly, have oversight over HR issues. And then maybe even more generally with kind of change management, what are some guiding principles for you that like keep the wheels on the bus so this thing doesn't crash while we're trying to get it to the next place?
Yeah, absolutely. So, change doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's changed in the organization, and it really has to be managed by, not just HR, not just, corporate communications, not just leadership. It really takes, a lot of people coming together to pull through that. I think a couple of things that have made us successful here at Scripps, and me personally successful with all of the, transactions that we've done is establishing relationships outside of my group, and not working in a vacuum. So I work very closely with our IT group. I work very closely with our finance and accounting group to make sure that anything that we're doing doesn't adversely impact them and vice versa. And that we always kind of go in lockstep with, everything we're doing, our systems and our processes and people, they're so intertwined. You can't, you could very easily unravel something unintentionally if you're not on the same page. So I would say that to me, it has been a guiding principle of mine, from the beginning, is you have to establish those relationships and work together well with people. In terms of, change management, I think the first thing, and I subscribe to a fairly simple version of change management, and I won't steal this. It came from a gentleman named Chris McGough. But it's really about just gaining agreements on some critical elements, like what's at stake? Why are we doing this? And sometimes there's a transactional element to it that's triggering something like, oh, well, we bought this entity, so therefore, we have to do that. And it's going to close on this date and, whatever. So those things make sense. And then sometimes there are just things that we as a company feel that we need to do this to remain competitive or take advantage of an opportunity or whatever that may be. But like, what's at stake? Why are we doing this? And truly understanding where you are now and where you are going to be or where you need to be, and getting the agreement on what that looks like, kind of the path to get there from one point to the other, and making sure that, again, that core group of folks that really need to work together understand all that and agree, on those things, I think is super critical. And I can tell you, we've been very successful with it. We've been through our transactions aren't just transactions in and of themselves. I'll give you, for example, when I first came to Scripps, we were working through our HR transformation, what we called our HR remodel. We owned HGTV at the time, so it was kind of a play on that. And as we were working through the HR remodel, which was a multi-year project, we decided to split the company. So we, things like that. When we were deploying Workday, which was, with HR, financials, and everything we went live with, which was about an 18-month project. By the time we got everything live, we were acquiring three different companies at the same time over that period of time. Wow. So when you're going through not only just the initial change, but kind of the other changes that are happening around you that impact you, you better stay on the same page with that core group.
So quick question. First thing you said was relationships. And then second thing I heard you say was kind of gaining agreement on we're here and we need to get to there. How do you manage disagreement? So if I'm going to throw finance under the bus for a second, but finance is like, no, this is too expensive. No, you got to do this cheaper. Like, we can't afford this, whatever the objection might be. Mm-hmm. And you're like, yeah, but to do this right, it costs so much money, or this is going to be highly disruptive to people. And finance is like, well, people's interesting, but I care about profit. But like, how do you manage conflict?
Yeah, so it's so interesting. So fast forward from the HR transformation, which was between 2007 and 2009. And, when I first arrived at Scripps, and then around 2013 or 14, we started a finance and accounting transformation in the company, which very same principles that we were trying to do HR, trying to pull administration out of the field and really focus on value-added work in the field. And I was asked to help with that project, even though I have no finance and accounting background. But I said, sure. And the first thing that I looked for. So at the time, we had outsourced a significant amount of back office accounting work as well. And that also wasn't going so well. And so the first thing that I looked at was, why are we doing this? Why did we say we were doing this? And it was, hey, we were going to transform the way we did things. Well, we didn't transform the way we were doing things. Therefore, it wasn't working that portion of the project wasn't working out very well. So I met with our CFO at the time and our controller, and we just established a few guiding principles. And that's where you have to start. Why are we doing this? Forget the ROI. Just why are we doing it? Why do we think this is a good idea? Because if we don't get agreement on that, then you're going to fight about every little decision. Kind of a funny story that I tell out of that project is, so I asked our CFO at the time, and this was just beautiful. I said, why are we doing this? Like, what's your vision? And he said, accounting transactions should be done by accountants, and financial analysis should be done by finance professionals. And I'm like, that sounds simple enough. Wrote that down. That becomes guiding principle number one. Mm-hmm. So fast forward, months down the road, as we're having conversations about, hey, we're going to change this. We're going to change this. And we got agreement from leadership on that statement. Every time somebody would say, well, no, I think Bob should continue to do. No. Accounting transactions will be done by accountants. We all agreed to this. And to the point where, we got more mileage out of that one sentence than I can get just about anything. But to the point where he actually came back to me at one point and he said, I feel like we tricked people. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, since they agreed to this, they can't disagree on these smaller decisions down the road. And I said, I don't think we tricked people. We're just constantly pointing back to our North Star, because you're going to get lost in the weeds. You're going to get lost in the woods of all the minutia that needs to be decided on. And if you don't have that North Star to look at, you're going to get lost. And all of a sudden a 10-month project becomes a 25-month project, and mildly, if successful at all, if you don't always go back to what your guiding principles were. So for me, if you don't start there, you're kind of asking for trouble.
No, it's cool because, again, zooming out a little bit, it kind of reminds me of mission and vision kind of work, right? It's like
absolutely,
and values. It's like, well, if you don't know those things, then you do get really lost very quickly in the minutia, because you don't have something that's leading you in a certain direction. I think that's awesome. One of the things that we had talked about in earlier conversations is, and you even kind of just mentioned this a minute ago, like when projects aren't going the way they're supposed to go, or something's happening. Do you mind sharing the principle that you shared with me from the book Range about firefighters and their tools?
Oh, yeah. So just that one really jumped out at me when I read this book. I highly recommend the book Range to your listeners as well. But basically, it's the principle of dropping your tools. And so the kind of the real world application of this in the book is a very sad one, but it's about firefighters that get dropped into forest fires, and literally they get dropped into the middle and there's fire all around them, and they do their thing. Each one has a specialty, whether it's a chainsaw, whether it's not, like they have some kind of special tool that they carry. And occasionally there will be a call out on the radio that says, drop your tools and run. Like the winds have shifted or something's happened. The fire's coming at you. And the ones that drop their tools and run, they survive, and some do not survive. And they said they routinely find them holding on their tools. And, when you're carrying a 50-pound chainsaw or something, that slows you down. So, the analogy that it was making kind of to the business world is, we all come to projects, to, initiatives, whatever it is, to work every day. We all come with our tools, and our tools are the things that we have found to be successful in the past. But you've got to be willing to drop your tools to find a better tool or a better way to get out of a situation. And I love the analogy because I think it's really important on all of us to remain humble. Even though this may have been successful in the past, every situation is kind of unique. Even acquisitions. In my time here at Scripps, we've done 30 plus, transactions. And while I approach them all from a high level with the same idea, everyone is unique. Everyone's going to have unique challenges. And you got to be willing to drop your tools to an extent and say, okay, what do we need to be successful with this one?